What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, it's your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? It is a beautiful Sunday for me and my guy here recording here from Austin, Texas. And of course, when I talk about Austin, Texas, you know who I'm talking about. This is my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, bro. I'm doing great. Just went grocery shopping with Danielle. Grocery shopping's interesting, man, because it's like in the past when I would go by myself, I'd end up spending like $150 per week on just food for myself. And now because I shop with Danielle and we're like more budget conscious, I'm just kind of looking for those deals, checking all the prices, the price per ounce and all that, and trying to stay under like $90 a week for two people. And that's kind of the goal that we've been hitting lately. And I was proud of myself today, man. We were like $92, and that was with buying a $15 thing of coffee.
My bigger question is how did you spend $150 shopping for yourself? I've also shopped for myself. That seems insane.
Dude, a lot of steak, a lot of chicken, a lot of meat, and now it's like more vegetables and like, not plant-based diet, but the only
Yeah.
thing we bought that was meat-based was the chicken because we're making some homemade General Gao's tonight. Shout out to my mom, Ellen Manakis, for that recipe. And gonna make some General Gao's tonight, and then just gonna dude, you know what we're making? So we've been making these naan pizzas. So we just could buy
Oh, I think
the
you've told me about this. Yeah.
yeah. So we're going like naan is the base, right? And then
Mhm.
Danielle normally does some sort of like cashew sauce, but we're going buffalo chicken pizzas this week. So I got the chicken for the General Gao's, chicken for the buffalo chicken pizza, and I'm ready for the week, man. I'm ready to eat.
Yep, I'm telling you, man. This is where Costco comes in. You go to Costco, you buy some chicken for, 20 bucks. They come in like these like 6-pack packages. You cut one up, put it in the fridge to use. You put 5 in the freezer. Basically, you need to go get protein like once every 6 weeks.
Dude,
It's
so we
it's
we were we were
insane.
on the Costco vibe for a little bit, but we were on Danielle's parents' Costco
Mhm.
card, and then they cut us off of that because they needed to
Damn,
put yeah,
talk
they
about
needed
family. You got cut out.
right, dude?
Put a
Yeah, they
ring
needed
on it, and then you get cut out of the Costco? That ain't how it's supposed to work.
well, I put the ring on it after, hoping that they would put us on the Costco membership, I
That
proposed so I get the
was the
Costco
reason.
membership.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, but they wanted to put Danielle's, cousin on it because she had just moved and was living on her own, so she needed it more than we did, but we haven't gone back to get our own Costco membership. But
Gotcha.
we were doing that for a little bit, and we were doing the big old pork shoulders or pork flanks, whatever you call it, and then
Got
cutting
the
those
deals,
up
man.
to
I
create the
I
pork.
I can't
Ooh,
mess,
man.
man. I've been converted to Costco. I mean, shit, all my golf or not half my yeah, half my golf clubs are from Kirkland, which is the Costco brand.
I
Dude,
love
that's
that.
like you can get literally anything there. It's we were supposed to go today. We pushed it to tomorrow because we just got a little bit lazy. Well, mostly I got a little bit lazy. And then we also have a basketball game tomorrow, which is at like 9:20. Feels like a fucking West Coast
Dude,
game.
not ready.
So when she was like, "Well, what if we just go tomorrow?" I was like, "That's actually perfect," because I think the worst thing about our men's league we play in and we get these 9:20 starts is once I end work and then we have these late games, I'm like, I need something to fill that time, but I also like I don't want to work out and then be tired for the game. I don't want to, eat a big meal. So then I'm just like kind of snacking or I'm trying to like immediately at 5 o'clock, which is like a little bit early for when I really would want to eat, trying to like, make dinner right away. And then I'm just kind of like hanging around. So for me, it was perfect to push our shopping to tomorrow. So now that I have time to fill between like the end of the workday and then this late ass game that we have.
Yeah, dude. I don't know how we're playing these games that are 9:20, 8:45, whatever the start times are. It's just too damn late. I can't sleep after the games and I'm up. I know you
I'm gonna
have
bring you an
your
edible tomorrow, man. I'm telling you, these like it's CBD and it's part CBD, part THC. Literally at 9:20, take it on your way home. It takes like 45 minutes to kick in, so you'll be home by the time that anything kicks in. You'll go home, take a shower, keep hydrating, and like I'm telling you, it makes such a world of difference. I'm bringing you one for tomorrow
how
after the
does
game.
it affect your brain?
What do you mean?
So like the reason why I no longer really partake in any sort of like THC or anything like that is because
Mhm.
I don't like just like the anxiety and paranoia it causes me.
Well, this should, I mean, ideally, this is like an indica strain. So between that and the CBD, like it should just make you tired. Like it shouldn't necessarily, I mean, and like unless you're trying to pull, I think what is it in role models, they do it with like Xanax or something. They try to like fight through it to like
Yeah,
sleep.
yeah.
Crazy shit. So unless you're like actively trying to fight through it, the whole goal is that it should just make you sleepy and allow you to sleep so that you're not
Indica,
like
Indica-couch. Yeah, yeah.
exactly,
I'm
yeah.
with you. I'm with
So
you.
so between all of those factors, all it should do is make you sleepy. Like, yeah, you'll feel a little high, but it should ultimately just make you drowsy. It's just like a sleeping.
Sounds good. I'm ready for it. You brought
Yeah.
me aerating shoes and aerating. Dude, by the way, that aerating stuff working wonders. Working
That
wonders.
let's go. I'm happy they found a good home. I'm hoping that I never need to use those on my grass again as we got our new grass installed. So I was going through and manually picking out weeds yesterday. So we're on maintenance 101 over here to make sure that we never need to use that again. Hopefully. So we'll see. But I'm glad that's working out. But I think should we talk some basketball now?
Yeah, we should talk some
We
basketball.
should
I was
probably we
gonna
should
say, like,
probably
I was like, this is the most like lame first opening 6 minutes of a podcast ever. It's like literally the like Frank the Tank in old school.
Yeah. I mean, well, we thought we were gonna have Adam on this one. Adam is actually doing another project that hopefully you guys will be seeing here that should be up on our YouTube page. Actually, it should have already been up. If you listen to this in the podcast form, it will already be on our YouTube page. Go to it. Adam has an interview that he's working on right now. And then podcast wise, it should actually drop later in the week. So we'll be on the lookout for it. We'll have some announcements coming out soon. Follow us on all of our social media brands. But yeah, I kind of thought we were gonna, I know originally we were gonna have Adam on this, have a 3-man weave, and we were gonna be able to mix it up a little bit. But now it's like we're just talking domesticated shit for 7 minutes.
This is
So
like I know everybody knows that listens to the pod that we're best friends, but this is like this is just me and Will catching up.
yeah, yeah. There's absolutely no way to really bring the audience into this. So let's switch it up and let's keep going with it's summer podcast time, guys. So we're gonna keep going with the rankings that we've been doing. We've done our top 5 point guards in the East. We've done our top 5 shooting guards in the East. Top 5 NBA duos, and now today we are gonna do our top 5 small forwards. Before I share my screen here, Greg, what I think I want to talk about is there's 2 things before we get to the ranking or to the command shift Xing before we go ahead and start getting rid of some of these guys. But number one, how are we viewing small forwards? We talked about this a little bit with shooting guards, right? Where like shooting guards, small forwards, power forwards, those are the 3 that kind of sometimes fit into they're a wing slash big, a guard
Mhm.
slash wing, a wing slash guard. So how did you go about trying to think about, and we're going to get into who we are actually qualifying to rank here in a second, but how did you go
Mhm.
about thinking through that process?
Just like as traditional as I could with it. Like I'm probably actually using like 2000s like criteria for these positions. So for example, I know you
That's
have
how outdated all this is.
yeah, I know you have for example, where was it? Let's see. There's someone I'm not seeing on here. But for the Wizards, right? I'd have Kyle Kuzma. I know you
Okay. See,
put
I think of him as more of a power forward, which is why I didn't have him on there.
yeah, but I mean he's if he was in the early 2000s, Kuzma wouldn't be a power forward.
Right. But then that
He's
gets,
more he's more like people would compare him, put him in the same class as not in the same class, but like same position as Jayson Tatum, right? Jayson Tatum in today's game is pretty much a 3/4, and I feel
mhm.
like Kuzma is also a 3/4.
Yeah, I mean that would be the one place where we would differ. I put him as a 4/3, but this is where it gets really semantic as to how
Mhm.
you're going to qualify it. I think for me, part of it is I just look to the starting lineup. Like what would be their starting lineup? And their starting lineup would probably be Tyus Jones, Jordan Poole, who we already talked about. Kispert is likely going to be there, in that quote unquote 3 slot. And then you have Kuzma and Daniel Gafford. So when I look at it that way, to me, that's more how I've been trying to judge it is kind of just
Mhm.
based on, all right, if
Yeah,
we're
that's
going
fair.
to be traditional conformists, what does that look like with your starting lineup? So that does transition us here to the list that I've created here for these small forwards for us to choose from. I think there's only a couple that we need to talk to. So the Wizards was one that I was going to bring up. I think it sounds like we're okay. Let's just roll with Kispert. at
Yeah,
the
sure.
three. He's not going to make the final five. Shocking. Just a quick update here for anyone that was tuning in for some Corey Kispert content. Probably not going to make the top five here. A few others that I think we should talk about. The Raptors. I think we've disagreed on every single position that we've gone through as to who we should label what. I put for this one OG/Scotty, but let me hear where you were thinking, because the Raptors are really truly one of the weirdest teams, other than Pirtle at center, to really define what the other four guys are supposed to be.
Yeah, it's weird, man, because you could also like make an argument for Pascal there, and
Well,
like
I
any.
believe me, I thought about that. And I was like, we're just doing all three of them again because I don't. We've talked about all three of them for shooting guard as well. I think in some form or fashion, and for point guard as well, actually.
Well, I think OG's the one that like can guard up the most. I think Pascal's a better like off-ball defender, but if like they needed someone to bring the beef against like a Zion Williamson or something like that, I feel like OG would probably get that assignment just because he's one of the strongest dudes in the
Yeah,
league. So that's why I might lean OG in the next list and Pascal on this list.
but
And
then where does that
Raptors.
leave Scotty though?
I mean, I was making the argument Scotty was a point guard back in the point guard list.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like so the Raptors are the team that are throwing everything off, whether we're looking at this as the 2000s or if we're trying to figure it out by their starting lineup. None of it is adding up.
Well, then the
Way-
Raptors organization succeeded because that's basically what they've tried to do over the past 3 to 4 years.
yeah. So let's do this. So would you prefer, so we can leave two Raptors on here. Would you want to go OG Scotty or OG Pascal on this one?
But you can only pick one.
Oh, yeah, we should probably so we could have two guys on here. Well, they could be slots 3 and 5. If we really wanted to do it. It's our list. We can do whatever the hell we want.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, let's I feel like Pascal's too skilled to really call him like a 4. Let's move OG to the 4. Okay, let's have
Okay.
Pascal and Scotty.
So this will be Pascal. Okay.
Yeah.
Pascal. All right. So that will be the Raptors nomination for this here. The Cavs, I put Max Strus. I think that's looking like what probably is going to be their starting small forward. We
Yeah,
went over Garland, went over Mitchell, and then of course Mobley and Allen aren't going to fall into the small forward category. So
I think
I
they've
think
seemingly
Strus.
given up on Okoro a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone else here that you think that we need to discuss as someone that you may have put on this list instead of one of the players that I have listed?
No, I feel pretty good about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So quick rundown of the players that we're going to be ranking here, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll start to Command Shift X over here. But we've got from the Celtics, of course, we got Jayson Tatum. From the Knicks, we've got RJ Barrett. From the Nets, we've got Mikal Bridges. 76ers, Tobias Harris. Raptors, just went over Pascal Siakam / Scotty Barnes. Bulls, we've got DeMar DeRozan. Cavs, we've got Max Strus. Pistons, we've got Bogdan Bogdanovic. Pacers, Bruce Brown. Bucks, Chris Middleton. Hawks, DeAndre Hunter. Charlotte Hornets, Gordon Hayward. Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler. Orlando Magic, Franz Wagner. And Wizards, Corey Kispert. That's the list. We feel good, Greg?
Dude, and looking through this list, I think this is going to be a harder exercise than I thought.
As I was making it, I had that same thought where there's maybe 1 to 2 easy cuts. And even those guys, if you really wanted to dig in and make a case for them, they could be probably a little bit higher. But it's a pretty solid list. It's a pretty solid list. So let's take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll start getting rid of a couple of these guys. All right, Greg, it's our favorite time to Command Shift X for everyone there on a Mac, in case you're knowing how curious as to how we make the magic happen on this podcast. But Greg, first pick here. Who's the first guy that has to go on this list?
I just have so many feelings towards what happened in the Heat series. Fuck you, Max Strus. You're out of here. Sorry, man.
Max Strus, you are gone, my friend. Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, it's one of those things that like he did kind of kill us, but at the same time, he's the guy that has to go. And that's also the reason for me that I'm still like not as high on the Cavs offseason. I feel like a lot of people, like a lot of like national writers, were like the Cavs did a really good job. They got Max Strus and George Niang, and I'm like,
Well, they
really?
needed shooting.
I mean, they needed shooting, so I get that. But I also just don't think it's as revolutionary. Like unless Evan Mobley becomes, this Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, player that we potentially think he has the, has the potential, or that he has the potential to be. I don't know. I just didn't think their offseason was amazing. I thought it was fine, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just not that
I
big
just found out George Niang is Senegalian. Did you know that his dad was Senegalian?
I did not know. I know he's from somewhere in Massachusetts, but I did not know he was Senegalian.
Yeah, I for some reason I thought he was just a white guy, but apparently he's part Senegalian.
Yeah, I did think that as well too. He's also, I'm pretty sure he's pretty close friends with our guy Kevin Hayes as well from their
Yeah,
time in
yeah,
Philly.
I've seen some Instagram photos for sure.
Yeah.
All right, who's
All
your
right.
pick?
So the next one here, I think we just got to go to the Wizards here. Corey Kispert. He actually, I looked him up today because I was trying to make sure I got this right with the Wizards. 11 points per game, 42% shooting from three, almost 50% from the field. That's a nice little season. That's a nice player to have on
Sneaky
your
athletic.
team. He's got sneaky athletic, got some good size. But just for this list, like we said, it's a little bit better than what you might think. So I think for me, he's probably the next easiest cut. And there's maybe one or two more that are relatively easy. And then you got to start to really think about where you're going here.
For sure. And anybody that's following along on the pod, I recommend that you go to YouTube so that you can actually see this list in front of you and see us making real-time cuts to it. So make sure that you're going to the description, clicking on the YouTube link if you have the chance to do that. But yeah, I agree, man. Kispert, I think he's better than I thought he was going to be. Same thing with Strus. I thought Strus wasn't going to be anything. When the Celtics had him, we picked Javonte Green over him. We cut him, and then he ended up finding a home with the Heat, and it's turned into a nice little contract for himself. But Kispert, he's definitely impressed me anytime I've seen him. He's super heady, great shooter, great hair. Love the Kispert hair. So my next pick is going to be tough. A lot of good players on this list. I think I have to go Bruce Brown, and maybe that's too soon.
That's a tough one.
Brucey
I mean,
B.
I don't know if it's too. I mean, it's inevitable that he's getting cut before the top five. So whether it's too soon, it's going to happen. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, we both love Bruce Brown. Shout out to Brucey B.
Brucey B.
Brucey B, Boston's own, man. But yeah, it's a tough cut, right? That feels really rough because he's I wouldn't say he's a steal because he got paid, but obviously it's a contract that is geared towards a win-win for both sides. So it is a bit of an overpay, but a 1 to 2 year overpay. But he was so critical in that Nuggets run to the championship.
He's so good.
And he just feels like one of those guys that whatever team you put him on, he'll find a role. You need another ball handler, got it. You need me to play up and be this is our small forward list, but he's 6'4". You need me to play a power forward type small ball 5. We saw him do it in the Nets, and he was actually very successful in that role. He can be a top tier defender. His shooting seems to continually get
okay. Well, all right. I cut him too soon. All right, let's teach people some Mac shortcuts. Hit Command Z for me. Command Z. No. You talked me into it. Command Z it. Command Z.
I got you.
But we're trying to teach people. Command Z, bro. Okay, so I'm gonna cut DeAndre Hunter then. I actually really like DeAndre Hunter. But as you were talking, Hunter's just not quite there yet. And if I had to choose, coming into the season, the whole point of this exercise, right, is coming into the season, who are the top 5 guys that you would want on your team? And I would rather have Bruce Brown coming into the season, especially after winning a championship, than DeAndre Hunter. Although I'm still pretty high on DeAndre Hunter. I think too many people have written him off as a little bit of a bust.
Well, he's just in that weird spot. I mean, this is part of the issue with the Hawks trying to make another move, right? Is DeAndre Hunter potentially might be that centerpiece, but I think people think he still might have potential, but there's not really there's not enough body of evidence, right? That shows that anything he can do is sustainable, and part of that's injury related, right? So it's just a weird spot where it's not it's not curtains for DeAndre Hunter, but it's definitely a big year as far as can you stay healthy? Can you give us the production that we think that you're capable of, over a full season? So big season for him coming up. We're gonna go to my pick here. Bruce Brown staying on the board, not taking him off again right now. I'm gonna go to old friend Gordon Hayward. Just who knows if this guy's even gonna be healthy. It's when he's out there, and if they're getting Miles Bridges back, we'll see what the PJ Washington thing is kind of forgotten right now as to whatever the hell's going on with his restricted free agency. That will be interesting to see how that plays out. But I would assume at this point he somehow, some way ends up back in the Hornets. But they get Miles Bridges, PJ Washington comes back, Gordon Hayward's healthy, LaMelo's out there. They add in Brandon Miller as a number 2 pick. maybe there is something for the Hornets. And if Hayward's healthy, that's always kind of the key. I mean, that's one thing that we've seen since he left the Celtics is that we've kind of missed that Gordon Hayward piece and haven't really been able to fully fill those shoes, even though they were temporary shoes because he wasn't always available. But when he was a very key connective piece.
Yeah, and I think Gordon Hayward, if at this point in his career, if somebody said, "Who do I want on my squad?" Gordon Hayward versus Bruce Brown, or Gordon Hayward versus Bogdanovich. I think a team could still talk themselves into Hayward just because he's such a smart player, man, and like he's still versatile on defense. It's just going to come down to injuries with Hayward, and you just can't rely on the guy. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good pick, cutting him there. So I would say the next two guys that you have to talk about here are the guys I just mentioned, Bogdanovich versus Brown. Man, Bogdanovich, every time I watch that guy play, I'm like, man, he's just better than I remember. Every single time. He just does something else where I'm like, this guy, he has a little bit more in his offensive game than you expect. He can score from all three levels. He's a knockdown shooter. He's like 6'9". He can guard most wings in the league. He's lost a little bit of a step laterally, but back in the day, he was the guy, I think when he was on the Pacers, maybe, where he would guard LeBron. He's just one of those guys that is also a dog. I really like.
Yeah, he's tough as shit.
He's super tough. So I'm not going to cut him yet. I think that he deserves to be on this list. I wish he wasn't on the Pistons because I do think that if he was on a really good team, he would have a huge role for them.
Yeah.
So now I'm looking at, I guess, Tobias Harris versus Bruce Brown. And, I'm an anti-Tobias Harris guy on this pod, but I do think in a vacuum, he's still just a better player than Bruce Brown. So this is where I think Bruce Brown gets cut.
Yeah.
Lasted a few more picks, but I feel this is about right for him.
Yeah. This is where it needs.
He's a role player, right?
Yep.
High-end
role player. Gotta go. All right. Bruce Brown has been cut. And then, yeah, I think you kind of led right into where this next conversation goes. Now, I think we're at the Tobias Harris versus Bogdanovich. And, it's somewhat similar because, we are we're anti Trae Young. We're anti Tobias Harris. We're at least I'm anti Rudy Gobert. I don't know if you and Adam are as anti Rudy Gobert as I am. But, it's one of those guys that we kind of have a continual drive-by of just anytime we talk about the Sixers, it's talking about Tobias Harris is always going to be negative for any Tobias Harris stands out there. Which if you're a Tobias Harris stan, that would be
I feel like he and Semi Ojeleye hold the record for most strays caught on Agreeing with Every podcast.
100%. We should have a tally going on that to see who catches more of those. I think in this situation, I think I'm going to go Bogdanovich, and I don't feel great about it. But I do think because Tobias Harris is fine as your number 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he's your number 4 and he's being paid appropriately as your number 4, like he's fine. He's just fine. I think it's just that there's more expected out of him based on contract, based on, playing in Philly and kind of the spotlight of where that team has underachieved for the last couple of years, and him never really having a moment where he's stepped up because there's been a lot of turmoil and opportunity for a guy that is supposed to be, as skilled and talented as he is, where it's like you should have had at least one moment where it's like, even if it's not continuous, but it's at least that one moment. Hey, remember that game 3 where Ben Simmons was shit in the bed and Joel Embiid was hurt and Tobias stepped up? Just that one moment, and there's not a single moment that I think anybody can recall.
Well, I think Tobias is the better defender between him and Bogdanovich, but I think if you have to trust somebody and to like take over a game, I would 100% rather have Bogdanovich on my team than Tobias Harris. I think Tobias Harris is a much better defender at this point in their careers, but I'm okay if you cut Bogdanovich before Harris.
Well, you know what I'm going to do? We're going to cut both of them because that's going to be our next 2 picks, I think. So let's just go ahead and take care of them both here. And so let me give a quick rundown here of who we have remaining. So remaining on the board still, we've got Jayson Tatum, we've got RJ Barrett, we've got Mikal Bridges, Pascal Siakam / Scotty Barnes, we've got DeMar DeRozan, we've got Chris Middleton, we've got Jimmy Butler, and we've got Franz Wagner. Oof. This is where it's tough right now. Greg, where are we going?
Well, I think we all know who definitely is going to be in the top 2, right? You're going to have Jimmy Butler, you're going to have Jayson Tatum. So we know we're not touching those guys. RJ versus Mikhail, Pascal. Pascal's probably going to be on that list too.
I think Pascal's
So
making the top 5 now that he's available, and we've decided he's part of this. I think Pascal's an easy top 5.
okay, so I think the most logical discussion right now is between RJ and Franz.
Interesting. Okay.
What were you gonna say? Because I think you can get rid of Scotty. I don't think Scotty belongs in
That's
this
okay.
list.
That's where I was going. Was that I think Scotty's the next
Yeah, I
call
think you just like
to
get him
go
off the
there.
list completely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Let's just delete him.
yeah.
Glad we had
Okay.
that discussion to start this.
So I think RJ versus. Do you agree RJ versus Franz is probably the discussion now?
RJ versus Franz is the next discussion. So right now we have, let me see. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I mean it's getting tight right now. RJ and Franz is the discussion. And this is a tough one because a little bit of this is I'm starting to just be okay with who RJ is, and I think RJ is a really nice player. RJ is basically like
Mhm.
a 25-5 type of guy. Plays solid defense. His 3-point shooting is going to be a little bit streaky. I think same as we were saying about Tobias. I think there's sometimes with this Knicks team where you wish RJ popped a little bit more than he
Mhm.
does, but at the same time, I think he fills a very necessary role on just about any contending team would like to have a guy like RJ Barrett. Like it's a very useful player to have. But then with Franz, he still is at the point in his career where I'm looking at his upside. And I
Yeah.
think there's still another level for Franz to get to. So long term, I think I'm definitely taking Franz. If we're looking at it right now, I think it's pretty close. And I'll see which way you're leaning, but I could go either way in the present moment. But I think if I'm looking over the next 2 years, like I would go Franz, and I wouldn't really have to think about it all that hard.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Franz will be the better player, 5 years down the road. We were like,
Mhm.
"Oh, there's a discussion between RJ Barrett and Franz Wagner on a podcast." I think Franz has the potential to be like a really high-end wing, and I think RJ's mentality and like the game that he has is to be more of a primary handler, less of a role player, and more of a star. So the fact that that skill set that he has isn't necessarily translating on an NBA level, and he's having to find himself as a role player, as you alluded to. I don't think that he's ever going to reach the heights that you kind of hoped as the number
Mhm.
3 pick in an NBA draft, right? I think that RJ is going to be, it's going to take him some time to learn how to be a great role player, and he's not good enough to build your team around, right? So coming into this year, I think I'd rather have Franz than RJ just because of that. Like I think
And
Franz, you can plug
RJ's
him
the
in a
cut
little bit
here.
more. Yeah,
Yeah.
RJ's the cut.
So we're going RJ, and then we'll go Franz is the next cut. So we'll go ahead and take Franz out of here. But we're both high on Franz. As we found out when we did that Bleacher Report stream, apparently not
Yeah.
everyone is as up on Franz as we thought. But as we're gonna see in pool play, we'll see the magic. We'll see them a couple times. They got a back-to-back in Boston in December. That could be trouble. A lot of jokes been made about that on Twitter. So we'll get some up close and personal experience with Franz Wagner this year for sure. So
So Will, we have 6 guys left.
we've got 6. So we've got to get down to the top 5. I think for me, the debate is between 2 guys for that 5th spot. Then we can start organizing the top 4. Tell me what you think.
So to remember, the discussion is who do you want coming into this year? And
Mhm.
because of that, I think the next guy that has to be cut is Middleton. I don't think that you can trust Middleton at this point in his career to go full 82. He's been too injury prone. His game's been slipping. Um, if this was Middleton 2 years ago, I think he's very clearly
Yeah.
on this list. But because of the injury concerns, he's getting a little pun completely intended, long in the tooth. I
I
think
was like,
Chris.
you pull the camera on and makes me you just paused, and I was like, what is Greg gonna say? I know I get
Yeah, so Chris Middleton's got to go.
it. Yeah, I think that's the right call. I was kind of thinking through my own top 5, and this is before we put Pascal on here, and Middleton and Bridges were who I was looking at for that 5th spot, and then I put Bridges. I did the same reasoning as you. I put Bridges above Middleton. I just thought, if I were Giannis, as much as and I take out of it the relationship that the two of them have, which they're very close. Who would I want right now? The answer is Bridges. Bridges is ascending. Middleton is potentially, slipping. We don't know what like Middleton is it's kind of a complete guess as to what version of Middleton we're getting coming into the season, right? Is it going to be the one that we got at the end of last year? Are we going to get that Middleton that you mentioned from a year or two ago where, going into that Celtics series, when he was out, like that really was a big deal because Middleton is a guy that has obviously killed the Celtics in the past and was probably a underrated, slept on, number two across the NBA for the stuff that he was able to do. And last year just wasn't that guy. Just was not him. He's getting a little bit older, and it's going to be interesting to see, as the Bucks as a team get older, they need like that's the sneaky part about the Bucks is they're a really old team. And so for them to see what they're going to do, they need Middleton to be back to being the Middleton from a couple of years ago. And it's too much of a gamble if we're making this list about who's going into next year. And, we see Mikal Bridges right now. He's on Team USA and FIBA. We've seen what he did, with the Suns in a 3-and-D role. Then he got to expand that, then went to the Nets and killed it last year. As, I don't think he's actually a number one guy, but I think he's kind of made his case that I could be the Jaylen Brown to somebody's Jayson Tatum. I think I'm at that. I'm kind of at that level with him, just about, maybe not fully sold, but like 80-90% sold, that I would feel pretty good about him as a number two on a contending or championship level team. And so I think Mikal Bridges right now is the call. And I've always liked him, even going back to his Villanova days.
Yeah. I think the next conversation, right? Let's take a quick break. Well, let's take our last break, and then we'll discuss who the 4-5 spots are.
All right, so now we are down to our top five. So here are the five names that we're going to talk about. Now we just got to slot them. So we've got Jayson Tatum, we've got Mikal Bridges, we've got Pascal Siakam, DeMar DeRozan, and Jimmy Butler. So I think for me, are we settling on Mikal Bridges at that 5 spot, or do you actually want to even bump him up one more spot? Do you have a guy that you think we need to talk about for that 5 spot?
I think it's Bridges versus DeRozan at this point, right? I mean, what Bridges showed last year when he got traded, the offensive bag that he had, what he's doing for Team USA, his spot up shooting is just so elite. DeRozan has the best skill set between him and Bridges, right? Just I'm sorry, the best individual skill.
Yeah.
I think that DeRozan's mid-range game and his ability to score whenever he wants is probably the best skill between any of the skills that these guys have between him and Bridges. But I think coming into this year, I think Bridges is about to enter his very significant prime. I think Mikal Bridges is going to be, looked at as probably one of the best contracts in the league for the remainder of his contract. I think he's on an absolute steal of a deal. So I would make the argument that DeRozan, especially after probably the last couple of years were the best years that we've seen out of DeMar DeRozan, I would expect there to be a slight little drop off with DeMar just as he's getting a little bit older and Mikal's, ascending into the point of his career where I think he's going to be more in the conversations with some of the best wings versus some of the mediocre wings.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. I mean, DeRozan's great, and I think, like you said, these last couple of years have been really special out of DeRozan, especially because I didn't see them coming. I thought he was, on the downslope, and these might have been two of the best years that he's ever had. And he's an absolute killer from the mid range. It's insane the things that he does. Especially watching him from a Celtics perspective, when it's just okay, we know he's trying to get to the free throw line extended and get a foul call, and he just seems to get it almost every time against the Celtics. And but I think you're right. I mean, I've been huge on Mikal Bridges going back to Villanova. Like I said, him, with the Suns, I love what he came in and did immediately for that team. And that's to your point, Greg. I think it's really interesting, and I would love to talk to someone within an organization about how to figure out what is the right development plan for young players. I think everyone has such different paths. There's some guys that just need to play and make mistakes, and that's how they get better. There's others that, like Mikal Bridges, come in and you kind of compartmentalize their development to, hey, you're a 3-and-D guy now. Excel
like
in
Jaylen
this
Brown
role.
too.
Yeah, and then you kind of start to expand your game over time, right? And I think Mikal Bridges, like I said, I think he fits into that Jaylen Brown type of role. I think that's kind of the player that he's becoming. And watching him on the Nets, that's to a certain level, if Jaylen Brown ever had his own team, like that's kind of where I see Jaylen Brown could lead a team to a 5 to 7 seed in a competitive conference. Like that feels kind of like what a Jaylen Brown as the best player would be on a team.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with this. DeRozan at 5, Bridges at 4. I think that feels good. I think if we're doing this, that leaves 3 guys. I think this makes 3 super easy for me. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
Pascal Siakam.
Yeah.
And, Pascal's awesome. I think as soon as we put him on this list, he's a guy that's fringe all NBA. Another guy that we put in that Jaylen Brown category all the time. Always a debate that we're having, Siakam versus Jaylen Brown. He's great. He can do a little bit of everything that you need. Once again, I don't think he's probably a guy that you can have as your clear-cut number 1 guy and be a championship team. But very valuable, kind of a 1A, top tier number 2 guy in the league. Yeah, he's an easy choice here at number 3, I think.
Yeah, and you just like it's disingenuous to even have him in the conversation with Tatum and Butler, right? I think that if anything, you could talk yourself into a Bridges versus Pascal conversation, but I think Pascal's just on another level than Mikal is right now.
Yeah.
Mikal would have to like really impress me this year to get to Pascal's level because I've been proven wrong time and time again with Pascal Siakam. That dude is a straight up baller. He gets better every single year. His off ball defense, his rim protection, his mid range game, his playmaking, everything that he could improve upon, he has improved upon. So
Yeah.
I really like Pascal at this point. He's earned my respect over the years. So Pascal at 3 sounds good, which leaves a Jayson Tatum versus Jimmy Butler conversation. And I think, after the NBA duo conversation, when we put Bam and Jimmy over Tatum and Brown, just because of what happened in the playoffs this year, logic would follow that we would have Jimmy Butler ahead of Jayson Tatum
It's
here.
tough, right?
I don't
This
know
is
if
a
I can
tough
go
one.
there.
I don't know that I can either because that's exactly where my mind went to when looking at this list is like, are we gonna have to? We already gave our reasoning for the duos as to why it has to be, like you said, Jimmy and Bam over the Jays. I mean, as the 2 best players, without there being, like quarterbacks in the NFL, they kind of take this on, right? As, what's Brady versus Mahomes record? That's kind of how it works in the NBA, right? Like what's LeBron versus, Carmelo Anthony's record? What is, Pierce versus LeBron's record? What is, whatever the best player on your team, on your particular team is, they kind of carry that mantle as this is their record. They almost have ownership of it. And in this case, Jimmy Butler has the advantage, over Jayson Tatum. But I think I still have to go Jayson Tatum 1, Jimmy Butler 2. And I think Jayson Tatum just made all NBA first team back-to-back seasons, 2 top 5 MVP finishes. And yes, Jimmy has gotten the better of Tatum and the Celtics in the playoffs, but Tatum has done some really special things in his playoff career. So I think he has a little bit more to lean on when you're looking at the individual versus the duos really has to reflect kind of the team success a little bit more than I think the individual one-to-one comparison does. And so I think when you look at Jayson Tatum with the 51 points in game 7 this past postseason, you look at the 46 points on the road in an elimination game against the Bucks. You can even throw in game 6 this past year as well, in the fourth quarter after having maybe the worst 3 quarters any superstar has ever had in an NBA game, and then putting the team on his back with 14 points in the fourth to close that out on the road in an elimination game. Like there is, as much as there is, playoff Jimmy Butler, Himmy Butler, there is a, Tatum does have that due to him in the playoffs, even though they've fallen short the last 2 years. He's got those moments. He's got the dunk on LeBron as a rookie, so I think I feel comfortable if Tatum didn't have at least a record of accomplishments in the postseason to back up this ranking of 1 over 2, I would just have to say it's Jimmy, because what else can you tell me that Tatum has done? But you can make a list of accomplishments of things of that Tatum has checked off in his career that make me confident enough, combined with his regular season prowess, which is I think definitely higher than Jimmy at this point, that I feel okay going Tatum 1, Jimmy 2. But Jimmy's Jimmy. It makes you think. It makes you think. It makes you really have to come up with a solid argument to put it 1 versus 2.
Let me just read you Jimmy Butler's first round playoff stats this year, Will. 37 minutes a game, 37.6 points per game, 6 rebounds, 4.8 assists, 2.2 stocks, 44% from 3 on 5 attempts a game, 9 free throw attempts a game, 9.6 free throw attempts, shooting 71%. Jimmy Butler's playoff resume is also pretty fucking good, man. And
Oh, of course.
the
I'm
fact
not
that
to say it wasn't. Yeah.
the fact that he did what he did in the finals in the bubble against LeBron too, where there were a couple games you're like, oh my God, Jimmy Butler's on the same level as LeBron James. Like I never thought he would ever get anywhere near that
Yeah.
conversation, and the fact that he has, very similar to Siakam, Jimmy Butler's just earned my respect over the years. But remember, the conversation is who do you want coming into this year? And I do think Jayson Tatum is about to have like a 5-year run that not many people are ever going to be able to match. So Butler, although I respect the hell out of him and he had a
Yeah.
great playoffs and he just beat us, I agree. Tatum is 1 on this list. Butler's 2 on this list, but it's close. And, if Jimmy Butler outplays Jayson Tatum again, there's no way that we can say Tatum is better than Butler if he does it again.
Yeah, if he does it again, there's just we have to throw up the white flag. Even if Tatum goes, first team All NBA, third in MVP voting this next year, but Butler, they match up with the Heat again in the playoffs and the Heat win. It's Jimmy. The answer is just Jimmy, and that's we have to leave it at that.
Or if the Celtics make it to the finals and Tatum has a shitty finals again, you know what I mean? Like if he doesn't, I know he stepped up in big moments, but Tatum wasn't good against the Warriors.
He wasn't,
And
yeah.
And Butler has been really good in the finals.
You could
He
make a
was
case that
hurt.
his finals could have been better against the Nuggets. I think
Yeah,
that's that would be the, I don't want to say blemish, because that was the whole Heat team just ran out of gas at that point. I
exactly.
mentioned this on the Duos podcast. I think that if you look at just their last 9 games of the season, they went 2-7 because after they went up 3-0 on the Celtics, they just really ran out of steam. They found what they needed to get that game 7 in Boston, and that obviously Tatum's rolled ankle was kind of the spark plug for that. So it's a really close debate, but I think we have our final list. So we've got at number 5, DeMar DeRozan, number 4, Mikal Bridges, number 3, Pascal Siakam, number 2, Jimmy Butler, and number 1, our guy, Jayson Tatum. So fans, if you got, at least we can give something to the people right now. We got Jayson Tatum number 1. We got Jayson Tatum number 1. Maybe not number 1 in the duos, but
we had Jaylen
have
Brown number 2 for shooting guards.
Exactly. So that's going to be our top 5 small forwards in the Eastern Conference. Of course, we will round this out before the season tips off. We'll make sure we hit the power forwards and centers as well. Hopefully, we'll have Adam available and we can get his thoughts and put together the 3-man weave. But it is a Sunday.
I have a feeling that Adam is avoiding these conversations purposely so he doesn't catch the smoke of the public.
That's right. He doesn't have to put his true opinion out there into the ether for everyone to come at him about his actual opinions on these top 5. But we'll get him on here for at least one of them. He was here for the duo, so I'll give him credit for that. He was here with us for the duo, and he was part of the reason that we did put the Heat above the Celtics. But all right, Greg, it's Sunday. Let's wrap up this podcast here with what we do each and every Sunday, and that is our vibe check. What do you have for us today as your vibe check?
So anytime there's a big UFC event, I always have my vibe check centered around that. So just quick recap. It was in Boston, Massachusetts. So if you were in the building at TD Garden last night, I would love to just hear your thoughts. Just hit us up in the DMs, letting us know what the atmosphere was like. It seemed electric. There were some huge moments. Ian Gary, who's a kid from Dublin, he's like 25 years old. Very much Conor McGregor in the making right now. I don't know if you saw the clip of him, Will, but he went out. I didn't figure out which pub it was, but he went out to an Irish pub the night before the fight, and he had a training session in the pub with like a bunch of drunk people around him.
Okay,
So,
that's pretty funny. I don't watch anything with fighting, but that's pretty fucking funny. That's good.
Yeah, like I think he's got a little bit of a bad reputation just because he's very clearly following the McGregor model, just being an antagonizer, very brash. But he's super fucking talented, dude. And he dropped this one guy, Neil Magny, who's like kind of like a stepping stone fighter, but he's solid, veteran. This dude dropped him by kicking him in the leg with like a calf kick like 8 times in the fight, just straight up chopped him down by kicking him in the leg. It was really impressive. And then my girl, Zhang Wei Li, who's from China, she's the 115-pound champion. She's my favorite fighter on planet Earth right now. I think right at the beginning of the pandemic or right before the pandemic, she had this crazy fight with this, I think she, Joanna J. I can't pronounce her last name, but she was like the 150-pound champ for a while. And you may have seen the picture of her forehead. It's like a meme now where like Zhang Weili punched her in the same spot in the forehead so many times she ended up looking like an alien.
I think I did see this.
Yeah. So she defended her title against this woman from Brazil, Amanda Lemos, and Amanda Lemos was supposed to be like this amazing striker who was going to be able to knock her out. And it was 5 rounds of your poor countrywoman just getting dragged around the ring. It was impressive. I think the final
bad luck for
strike
Brazil.
count was like 281 to like 20. That was like the final strike count. It was impressive shit. So shout out
How'd
to
she
my
hang
girl
in there for 5 rounds, getting her ass kicked like that?
dude. It was impressive. Like I think if the fight had gone like 1 or 2 more rounds, there was a 5-round fight, which is super long.
Yeah.
Championship fights are 5 rounds, but it seemed like she could have caught her because the 20 punches that she landed, I thought were all very damaging. But she couldn't touch her, and anytime she overextended, Zhang just dragged her to the ground. It was impressive. And then the final fight, this was the main event. It was Sugar Sean O'Malley. I'm sure you know Sugar Sean. You've probably seen him. So in like 2015 or 2016, he was on the Contender series, I think, and Snoop Dogg was commentating. So that's why he got famous, because there was like a whole clip of Snoop like loving this goofy looking white kid with curly hair. He like does basketball celebrations when he knocks people out. He like dribbles, dribbles around the ring and like does fadeaways and stuff. It's actually pretty funny.
I think I might have seen that somewhere.
He's got pink hair. He like has pink and like rainbow colored.
Adam, we miss you, man. I have very little to contribute to this.
Imagine if I was just making these people up, but
I have no idea.
He ended up fighting. So he's fighting at 135 pounds. He fought this guy Aljamain Sterling, who's he's from New Jersey, I think, but he's called the Funk Master. He's known for being like a grappler and a submission artist, and Sugar Sean is known for being a knockout artist. So it was like, is Aljamain going to get his hands on Sugar Sean before Sugar Sean can knock him out? And he just like one punched him, didn't completely knock him out. He hit him with a counter right. So like Aljamain threw a big left, Sugar Sean stepped back and just like cross punched him with a right to the face, knocked him to the ground, and then just hammer fisted him until the ref had to call TKO. But Sugar Sean's like 28 years old. A lot of people thought that he didn't deserve to be there. They thought that because he's a superstar personality, that the UFC was kind of pushing him towards the title fight. So, and everyone thought he was going to get worked. He was like a minus 280 favorite. I mean, he was a plus 250 underdog in the fight. Aljamain was a minus 280 favorite. So it was really impressive that he did it. And like the fact that this kid is now a UFC champion is really impressive. But what I wanted to talk about for my vibe check was the way that Aljamain
Sterling. Got to it yet?
No, Aljamain Sterling, the way that he handled the loss. Because there was a lot of animosity going into the fight. It was, a guy named Sean O'Malley in Boston.
Yeah. Imagine the crowd was on his side.
Against a guy from New York, New Jersey, right? So there were a lot of fuck you Aljo chants going on.
O'Malley's not from Boston, is he?
No, I think he's from like Phoenix or something like that. But he's got a great Boston name.
Yeah.
And so he was clearly the crowd favorite. And like there were literally like fuck you Aljo chants happening like right at the beginning of the fight. And the way that Aljo embraced it, he was like egging the crowd on as he was walking to the ring. And then he tipped his hat to Sean O'Malley after the fight. And he was like, hey, props to him. This is great. The crowd's booing him as he's talking to the crowd. Right. And he's just like, listen, like, if you have a dream, go chase it. Like, do something for yourself, do something for your family through the boos. And he was able to turn the boos into cheers by the end of his speech in the ring. And then the way that he handled himself in the press conference where they asked him about the animosity of the crowd. And he was like, man, this is what we all grew up loving. Like you need someone to root against. You need someone to root for. That's what makes sports special. And I embrace it. And like, yes, there's a line that probably can't be crossed, especially David Letterman actually said this on the Smartless podcast with Will Arnett, Jason Bateman, and Sean
It's a good
Hayes.
podcast.
Great,
I've started to listen to that recently. I liked
unbelievable
it.
podcast. If
Yeah.
you haven't listened to the Letterman one, check it out.
Have you
But
watched their HBO show yet that I told you about?
I have not. What's it
Dude,
called?
now that you like, well, it's called Smartless. It's just on
Okay.
HBO. It just follows their podcast tour from behind the
Okay.
scenes
Sick.
as fellow podcasters. I think you'll really enjoy it.
Okay, cool. But Letterman, they were talking about like how tough it is to be a stand-up comedian today because like you don't know where the lines are. And Letterman said something I agree with. He was like, listen, if we need to overcorrect right now, like let's overcorrect as a society and we can always scale back, like how much we're overcorrecting on jokes and,
Mhm.
where the lines of decency are. So like I agree with that statement that it's probably better to overcorrect right now. But there was something great about the crowd just going, fuck you, Aljo, and him loving it and embracing it and being like, yo, this is sports. This is what I grew
Yeah.
up on. I love this shit. You know what I mean? Like people definitely get a little too sensitive to like, oh, like what are we doing as a crowd using such
It
profane
has
language?
become such a difficult line as to like, well, it's difficult and it's not difficult at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
As to where that line is, because like to me, like I just grew up where like yeah, like like the 'cause I think Draymond mentioned this and or Draymond and Clay talked about it a little bit during the Warriors finals, where like yeah, Boston super classy, fuck you, Draymond. It's like 2 games ago, Draymond, you got thrown out for flipping off people, like you know what
Yeah.
I mean? So there's got to be a give and take, and like to me, that's fine. Russell Westbrook complaining about people making like calling him West Brick, like yo, that's my name. I'm like, man, that's some like my last name is weird. You don't think anyone's ever called me weird or weirdo? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like listen, I like that's really not to me crossing the line. Then when you get to obviously anything that involves threats, racial, throwing stuff at
Mm-hmm.
players, you've crossed the line. Like I think
Families,
that's
children.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's where I think it gets very, very clear. But it is interesting to hear, you talking about the way that this fighter kind of handled it and being like the quote unquote bad guy in the situation, and then was able to kind of flip it and embrace it because I do think the fuck you Draymond chance or the Yankees suck chance, like yeah, they involve a curse, but it's also kind of part of what makes sports cool, right? It
Yeah.
just is like that's fun. The ones where it
Sports
crosses
isn't
the
rated
line,
G. Sports
yeah.
isn't rated G, man. Like the very least it's PG-13. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Rated R sports, like if we always talk about like if you had HBO behind the scenes, all the players mic'd, that shit would be rated R. Like
Yeah.
what the players say to each other and all
Yeah,
that stuff,
KG
the
mic'd up.
language that they
Woo!
use.
I mean, we've talked about that for a while. That would be good
I
God. That
mean,
would
any
be
Paul Pierce
A plus
content is
entertainment.
rated R. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's just the way it is. So the fact that I just wanted to like give a shout out to Aljamain Sterling because I thought it was one of the coolest things to see the crowd like go from straight up booing him to not like a rousing ovation like Rocky talking to the Russians or anything like that, but
Mhm.
there was like a smattering of applause for the guy after they were literally telling him to go fuck himself, 20 minutes earlier. So I thought it was really cool. And I hope that because he's not, it's what's interesting about Aljo is he's a really successful champion, but he's not a popular champion.
Mhm.
So I actually think him losing and handling the loss that the way that he did might actually gain him some more fans and have people respect him, similar to how I was talking about Jimmy Butler and Pascal Siakam.
Yeah, love that. I think that's a great one. Like I said, unfortunately, I don't watch any UFC, MMA, so I have nothing to necessarily contribute on that side. But Adam, we miss you. This is where you definitely even more so than the basketball talk. This is where you would have been able to contribute. And I'll wrap this. I'll make my vibe check super quick here. Heading into my Paul Pierce year this week, and just grateful everybody listening out there. It's just really cool. Grateful to Greg. Grateful to Adam, and everything that we've done here with the podcast. The older you get, just kind of makes you take a second, look back, reflect on where you're at, what you've done, and where things are going. And as you may be seeing right now, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening on the podcast, check out our new logo. We've got some changes coming here. We've got a little bit of a design rebrand going on. And so, big things. We're working on making sure we get everything lined up here and ready to go for training camp and the regular season. All of that is coming up quickly. So just grateful for for my guys here on the podcast and for those of you listening and tuning in. Like I can't, there's no words to express how cool it is when we do put something out there and we get either feedback, response. We see that our views on certain videos are jumping and we're like, oh shit, people care what we're saying. Like, that's really cool. Like, that's really cool that we have, that type of a following. So, for those of you that have helped us to kind of, continue to make progress, just shout out to y'all. I appreciate it and looking forward to more here in the future. But that's all I got today for a vibe check. Keep it short, keep it sweet. We had our top 5 here. We got our vibe check. Adam is working on a special interview right now, which go to our YouTube channel. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. That is up. It will be in podcast form later this week. Greg, any final thoughts before we send the people out of here?
Happy birthday, bro. August
Thanks, homie.
22nd. Make sure you are reaching out to my guy, Will Weir at Wilbon13, sending him all the birthday love. We'll be celebrating this weekend, right?
Yeah, we'll do a little something, guy. A little new patio unveil basically at the crib. So we'll have some people over, have some drinks, have a good time.
Looking forward to it. We're going to play you out with some music from my band down here in Austin, Texas. Go to the show notes. You can find a link to this song. This is called Get This High. Peace, everybody.
Peace, y'all.